Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to today's enlightened webinar, Evolution, Not Revolution, Transforming Developer Tooling at Deutsche Bank. My name is Allan Sint Jago, Strategic Account Manager at JFrog, and I will be your host. Our journey today takes us into the heart of Deutsche Bank, a global financial institution renowned for its innovative approach to transformation. Leading this journey is our distinguished guest, Neil Imms, the engineering lead for developer tooling at Deutsche Bank. Neil follows the guiding principle of standardization for delivering software, and he understands that in development organizations within highly regulated industries, striking a balance between innovation and compliance is an art. It's a delicate process, and today we'll delve into how Deutsche Bank is mastering this. For those of you unfamiliar with JFrog, JFrog is a global leader in DevOps and software artifact management. Our cutting-edge solutions empower organizations to release software faster and to the highest quality. JFrog provides the tools necessary to manage and distribute software artifacts efficiently, making us a crucial partner for organizations undergoing digital transformation. Without further ado, let's delve into Evolution, Not Revolution, Developer Tooling at Deutsche Bank. Neil, please tell us about yourself.
Thank you, Alan. Yes, I started my career as a structural engineer. I was delivering buildings and bridges for most of that time. What I learned in that across that period was the utilization of standard materials and standard practices for delivering custom structures. And I think that we can utilize exactly the same thought process in delivering software as well. The fewer parts that we have to change, or the more interchangeable parts that we have, the easier it becomes for us to be able to deliver software in a changing world. It doesn't mean that we end up with standardized software. It means that we end up with a more streamlined way of delivering that software into a production environment.
Brilliant. And why evolution? What makes this a winning approach?
So, first of all, I started my career a long time ago in DevOps. I started with Maven and with Cruise Control in delivering that, and I had an FTP service that stored my binaries. I found over the years that the tools have evolved in order to be able to give us more capability and functionality in that domain. And similarly, within Deutsche Bank, we started with one set of tools and we moved on to others. But you can't just go and break a process. There are people delivering critical pieces of financial software today within our firm that if you ask them to go and pick up a whole new way of delivering software, they would be disappointed. The way that we evolve our tool sets is generally from having a look at new tools where we see a gap in the way that we're processing, or we can see improvements in that particular piece of software, and working out how we can deliver that. But we also have to deliver that at scale as well. Where we're talking about an organization in my world where I run Artifactory. We have 15,000 users. We regularly clock 235,000 plus objects per week being stored in Artifactory for over 2,000 separate teams. And so we need to make sure that when we change something in a way that can accommodate that scale of operation. And when we do that, we invite people to start to use these new tools in a way that's sympathetic to their needs. In other words, we don't force that on them. We allow them to come to the new tooling, and they generally come to that in waves. We have good early adopters. That we have the large masses that we have to perform. We have to have discussions with to bring them on board, and then we have the people that aren't particularly interested in this, and generally some of these teams will never move. But we also say that we need to be careful not to disturb the way that teams are operating and delivering their functionality into production environments.
Okay, brilliant. So I know you and I have discussed this before, but for our audience, can you tell us a little bit more about how the development organization and supporting teams are set up at Deutsche Bank?
Yes, certainly. So my department is effectively two parts. First part is the tooling part, but we also have governance and control as well that we deliver as, within that space. And they're very good bedfellows. Essentially, the tooling that we're using needs to be governed, or the software that is delivered utilizing our tooling needs to be governed. So the tooling itself, we offer effectively a full stack of tools all the way from requirements gathering to deployment. We are operating a lot of the Atlassian tool suite at the moment, Jira, Confluence, Bitbucket, and we evolved that from earlier tooling, but we'll cover that later on. We also have Artifactory, and we've had Artifactory in for about 7 years now, and that's been operating particularly well at scale for us. And then we run a number of deployment tools depending upon the infrastructure that we're deploying to. For the governance piece, we have to gain insights into everything that is occurring within our software delivery, and that has to be understood and signed off to say that it is an acceptable set of software that is being delivered into a production environment. And we are continually evolving and improving that space as well. It's critical that we can tell our regulators that we govern our software and provide the evidence for that. The tooling itself aids that. You know, the bringing insight into what we're doing within our delivery is a critical element to being able to govern it correctly.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you for that. And can you just tell me a little bit more about, since you've actually been at Deutsche Bank, how has the organization evolved since you've actually been there, and where are you going? What's the future look like?
Okay, so when I started, we were using Subversion. We were using a different binary store, and it was stood up before my time for a small number of teams. But the ubiquity of our service was being noticed, and we were growing and growing. We reorganized our software control. We were originally going to go with GitHub, but we ended up with Bitbucket because we'd signed an agreement with Atlassian for this, which was very useful for us at the time. We expanded our Jira presence, and we've expanded our Confluence presence for documentation very, very broadly. On that front, we are moving towards SaaS solutions for both Jira and Confluence. For Bitbucket, we're moving towards GitHub and GitHub runners for our operation, for our CI/CD operation. That is in conjunction with the work that we're doing with Google for Google Cloud Platforms. That has proved to be a very beneficial partnership for us, and we are leveraging as much of that scale out capabilities that we need to deliver software in that environment. For our binary management, as I mentioned, we were using another product that didn't turn out to be as useful at the time. We moved to Artifactory, and we haven't looked back really. That's bedrock of our software storage and software management. We term it binary management within Deutsche Bank, because we don't just consider the binaries to be stored there. We also need to manage their existence, their life cycle. We have a number of tools that we've evolved starting to use to understand that space as well. Deployment is as I mentioned, it all depends upon where you're deploying to. So the evolution of that is essentially the evolution of where we're capable of deploying to. So we started with just with Linux servers, but we're moving on to Kubernetes clusters in-house, now Kubernetes clusters in GCP, etc. So we are evolving our deployment capabilities there, and then obviously serverless models as well.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. Now, I know you've been, or Deutsche Bank's been a customer of JFrog for several years. How does JFrog play a role in standardization as well as governance within Deutsche Bank?
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. So I'll start with the standardization. One of the things that we realized quite early on is that JFrog Artifactory is a very flexible tool. One of the things that we need to think about is the fact that we operate in projects. So we utilized some of the capabilities for user access controls to guarantee teams could have their own project space within there and standardize the way that they acted. Were able to utilize those standard spaces. Going beyond there, we're starting to look at governance within our Artifactory as well. We're looking at, in particular, at understanding the SBOMs and the CVEs within the binaries. But when you're talking about delivering software, especially within service-oriented architecture, you think about not one piece of software, but a whole set of them. So we've evolved an ability to be able to capture that set of software. We actually use AQL to be able to do that, to list out the correct binaries, gather all of the SBOMs and all of the information, the CVE information collated together into quite a large package, and can report on that for OSS governance and control. We're also looking at the way that we deploy into production environments and understanding and tracing our binaries and utilizing the SHA-256 that is provided within Artifactory, provides us with a guarantee that we know what software we're putting into UAT, and as a consequence, track that for going into production, and avoiding interesting adjustments to the software somewhere between the two, where the version stays the same, but the SHA-256 gets altered magically. Yes, I think that's.
Yeah, so I think going back to a point you made earlier, you mentioned about different teams doing different things. So how do you handle difficult teams within the organization?
Yeah. So the first rule that we start by is there is nobody in Deutsche Bank that gets up in the morning to make everybody else's life difficult, and they have a goal to achieve, and that goal is for the betterment of Deutsche Bank. So we first of all need to understand what their needs are and understand why they are uncomfortable with the way that we're operating. We then need to see whether we can adopt that and accommodate within our space. It doesn't always mean that we can achieve that. You know, some teams genuinely have very unique requirements that we can't satisfy. The goal, especially within our governance domain, is to ensure that we can support those teams as well, not to force them into a space that they can't feel comfortable in operating. But we also use this as a feedback loop to improve our own services as well.
So what I'd say now to our audience is if you want to implement JFrog, please respond to the poll here. So Neil, closing thoughts. What's next? What are you interested in, and what are you most excited about going forward?
So certainly, Deutsche Bank has a policy of moving towards SaaS. There are some things that we're doing at scale at the moment that moving to SaaS make perfect sense. Moving Jira and Confluence into SaaS are a good fit for us, and we're really excited about seeing that turn around. That will change, I think, our ability to scale grow even further, because we're partnering directly with the vendors. Similarly, with GitHub, we're doing very similar things with GitHub as well. We at the moment have a very large presence on-prem. Those teams we're hoping will be all moved to GitHub in the cloud in the coming year, and looking forward to seeing how those teams leverage the GitHub runners that are available there, and to upgrade and uplift the way that they're operating and building their software. The key thing going into that point is that it's evolution, not revolution. We're not starting by telling everybody they need to move their builds as well, starting to make it available for them to do something else, and to see which ones will come on board and which ones will carry on using their old processes. Similarly with Artifactory, I'm very keen to see us utilizing edge nodes to manage our resiliency and our latency issues. We are a global organization, but Artifactory tends to lend itself to being a centralized service, which doesn't play very well with transferring binaries across the globe. The other things that I'm very curious about or very interested to see how we can leverage those. Curation, I think, is going to make a step change difference for us in how we manage OSS. At the moment, the mechanism that we're operating is we bring the binaries into the firm and people use them. If we have a mechanism that says you shouldn't bring them in because they have vulnerabilities, and those changes take place very early on in the build and deployment process, I think that will improve teams' ability to utilize only the things that they know are good, rather than the things that they guess are good now, but may not be in a week's time. And finally, advanced security. I see that as a step change in the fight against understanding where vulnerabilities are the greatest risk to our firm. It was explained to me a while ago that just because you see a critical vulnerability and you see a minor vulnerability, you go and fix the critical one because you think it's critical to your app. You could find that the minor one has just as a serious impact on your application as well. And knowing the context of your application and being able to understand properly where those risks are, I think will massively improve the security delivery and also the maintenance value that our firm gets from these tools.
Fantastic. Well, it looks like we've come to the end of our session. I'd like to thank our guest, Neil, for sharing his insights and experience, and also like to thank you, the audience, as well. Now, if you want to know more about JFrog and how to implement again, please don't hesitate to contact us. We also have several webinars throughout the year, so we can always keep you updated with that as well. And I hope to see you next time. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.